Okay, so welcome to this virtual candidates forum for South County voters, sponsored by MoveVoter and the Tillamook County Pioneer. MoveVoter is a nonpartisan Facebook group with nearly 1,000 members that strives to educate voters on issues that matter to them. The Tillamook County Pioneer is an online newspaper with 18,000 subscribers. My name is Sadie Walker, and I will be moderating this afternoon. Today, we'll be hearing from candidates that will be on the ballot for South Tillamook County voters, including the Nestucca Valley School Board and the Tillamook County Transportation District. All South County candidates that are running in a contested race, as well as those running for the Transportation District and Tillamook Bay Community College Board of Education, were invited to this forum this afternoon. And we understand that not everyone could make it, but thank you to those of you who made the time this morning. I know the sun is out and yard work is calling to us, but I appreciate the fact that you found this important enough to be here, and the voters will appreciate it as well. So today's forum will be divided into two segments, starting with the school board. And for each segment, the candidates will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves. Just want to check and make sure that Zachary hasn't shown up yet. Okay. So since we don't have any races where both candidates are present, I will be fielding questions to the candidates that we have here. We won't worry about the timer right now. We'll just ask some questions and we'll have a nice dialogue. And then if the audience has questions for either candidates or for both candidates, we can get to those after we get through the questions that I will be posing. Does that sound all right with everyone? Okay, great. So also each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about why they're running for the position that they're running for. So with that, we can really go ahead and get started, and we will start with introductions. So first off, we have Sherry Hartford with us this afternoon, who is running for Director, Position 2. Sherry is running against Wally Nelson, who did not respond to our invitation to be here today. And then we also have Russ Sanders. He's here with us today. He is running for Director, Position 4 of the Nestucca Valley School Board. He is running against Zachary Best, who might show up today. He said he might be here, so we'll see if he pops in. None of the candidates for positions 1 or 3 responded to our invitation to be here, but we hope that everyone can make it to our next South County Voter Forum on May 11th at 6 p.m. So again, thank you to those of you who made this a priority today. Like I said, each candidate will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves, and I am going to kick it over to Sherry. So Sherry, when you're ready, just go ahead and unmute yourself and you can introduce yourself.
Perfect. I'm Sherry Hartford. I'm running for School Board Position 2. I'm a lifelong resident of South Tillamook County. I manage 14 long-term rental homes here in Hebo while raising my children. My oldest is in first grade at Nestucca Valley Elementary School. I attended Nestucca Valley schools from kindergarten through high school. I have coached at Nestucca High School for several years, and I continue to volunteer and mentor youth in the Nestucca community. I'm very passionate about education, and I'm very sorry I have 2 little ones. And just a second here, there we go. And I chose to run for school board because I want to encourage more parental choice and community involvement. I want Nestucca to attract and retain high-quality educators, staff, and decreasing the turnover. If elected, my top priorities will be fiscal responsibility and transparency with the community. I will be a positive voice for our children by working for them. I will make student achievement my main focus because they are our future, and we must ensure that they have all tools necessary to succeed in life. The attributes I can bring to this position is communication, passion, integrity, strategic planning, team player mentality, and I have sufficient time availability for the school board and school needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Russ, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Russ Sanders, and I'm running for Nestucca Valley School Board Position 4. This is an exciting time to become a director on the board. Great things are happening in Nestucca. The district is making significant improvements, and I want to keep this momentum going. 2 of my children graduated from Nestucca High School, and over the last 10 years of my 39-year career, I provided special education services to Nestucca students. Working with the children and families in this community convinced me of the importance of our schools meeting the needs of our students. I am running because our schools must remain safe spaces for all students and staff. Through my church, I learned to serve God first, then others, and myself last. After serving in the Army and Oregon National Guard, I earned my teaching credentials on the GI Bill. I have the education, experience, and qualifications to hold this position. As a teacher and school administrator, I've collaborated with school boards in 4 Oregon school districts. Currently, I'm focusing on serving South County, volunteering with the Nestucca Backpack Food Program, modeling the love of reading to our Nestucca kindergartners in the Smart Reading Program, and the Nestucca Valley Lions Club. We're funding 4 scholarships for graduating Nestucca seniors. With the support of parents, colleagues, and neighbors who understand my passion for the education of every child, I hope to earn your vote. My vision is of our community working together to support and nurture our children as they strive to reach their potential. Please vote for me and be sure to mail in your ballot or drop it off on time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Russ. So it looks like we still don't have Zachary with us this morning. So we're going to go back to Sherry, and I'm just going to ask you a series of questions. And you, like I said, we're not going to worry about the timer or anything like that. We'll just go for, 5 or 6 minutes, and you'll have an opportunity to tell the community about your thoughts on these questions. So question number 1. How can the school board be more accountable to the public on student achievement, school performance, and progress over time?
I believe that there should be transparency to the community. As my understanding before I ran and since I have ran, I've had a lot of community members address to me that they feel there is a disconnect between the school and the community. The community doesn't feel welcome, invited, or that they're getting the answers to the questions that they ask. So I think complete transparency with the community as a school board would be the most beneficial.
How do you foresee enacting that kind of transparency? Like, what are some steps that you think the school board could take that would engage the community more?
I think having meetings with the community, make sure that they know that they can attend the school board meetings, hear their voices, hear their concerns from all sides, have them feel like they're heard and their opinions are valid. And no matter what opinion it is, that everything is taken into account and addressed and proper answers to their questions.
Do you think there's a reason why community members don't typically show up to board meetings?
I think a lot of them are frustrated at this point because their questions that they ask are not answered. And I don't think that they necessarily feel welcomed into our schools and that they feel like they can be involved with our children as the community. And the community is the most important part for the school. They're there for our children. They come to the games, they come to the plays, they support us through their tax dollars, and they just want their voices heard.
Thank you. What are the literacy challenges that students in the district face, and what steps do you foresee taking to address these challenges?
Well, since the pandemic, I see a lot of students that I am mentoring. They feel like they're way behind. And I can only imagine that quite a few students feel that they're way behind. I know some 5th graders that don't even fully know how to read yet. So I think introducing and implementing more programs to help them succeed. I know summer school is offered, but have it more appealing to the students to want to go to get them caught up to where they need to be. No. Where they need to be. Sorry, my 3-year-old is right here. But I see it as a huge issue right now, especially since they weren't in school and a lot of them didn't have internet access to be on their classroom. So there's a lot of frustration there for them. So adding more programs, maybe doing a testing to see where students are at in school and where they can improve.
So you mentioned internet access, and that's such a big issue for South Tillamook County, right? A lot of families don't have access to reliable internet. Do you foresee a way that the school district could help address that or could partner with that? What are your thoughts there?
I think the school did try to address that. It's just there's so many rural communities that you can't get internet to all people. I mean, it's so vastly spread out that a tower here and there isn't going to hit every home. And that is what the issue is. It's not, and I don't think the school or anybody could really, without spending a lot of money, be able to get every student internet as much as I'm sure they would like to.
Great, thank you. What is your position on creating programs and incentives that enhance equity, inclusion, and diversity, especially as it applies to the LGBTQIA2S+ community and people of color?
Well, for starters, I have a daughter who is half Black, and I have been asked this question numerous times. I feel every child should feel included and want to be at school and feel comfortable and welcome. Now, I've heard so many different variations of the term equity, so it depends on who you ask as to what it means to them. I believe that equity, so I do not believe in equity of outcomes, but equity of opportunities. So not everybody should automatically receive the same outcome, but they should all have the same opportunities to achieve that same outcome. I believe it's important to my daughter that she doesn't receive special treatment, as she doesn't want that either. And our school does very good at including all students so that no one feels left out. So whether they be in the LGBTQ community or not, either side is not feeling left out.
Thank you. Do you have concerns about the safety of students as it applies to firearms? And if so, what steps would you suggest to ensure that students, staff, and faculty all remain safe?
I do not think right now there's a big safety issue, but I know that there's always a potential. There's a potential for any school, anywhere, for there to be an issue with that. I think, like, relating to schools, having an officer, a school resource officer, would be a great thing. When I was in high school at Nestucca, we had a student resource officer, and believe it or not, he made a lot of positive changes to the school. He helped a lot of different students overcome drug addiction, depression. He was there for the students, and he actually held them accountable. So I think that would be a great way to go. And also implementing metal detectors. You know, you go to the courthouse and the first thing you see is metal detectors and a security officer. And that, I believe, would also help students feel safe. And also, if somebody were to try to bring in a weapon, it would be found. Our school does do a great job right now of the doors are always locked. You have to be buzzed in to get in. And I've heard from other people that, well, people just break through the windows and come in. Yes. And I know that we have done the ALICE training, and stuff to try to prepare everybody as best as you can. But I think adding that level of protection with having a student resource officer on campus would help the faculty, the students, and the community alike. I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen some kids' lives changed, and it was very beneficial.
Do you know when the student resource officer position went away at Nestucca?
I'm not sure. I know it was there in 2001. I'm not sure when exactly it went away.
But you see that being something that you would advocate for as a school board member?
Absolutely.
And just one more follow-up question. Can you explain to us what the ALICE training is?
Sorry.
That's okay.
It just is a program that prepares teachers and students as to what happens in an active shooter drill.
Great. So just as a reminder, Sherry, thank you so much for answering our questions this afternoon. And you will have an opportunity to give a closing statement once we wrap up with everyone else. So
thank you.
Again. So we will move on to Russ. Thank you for being here this afternoon. Same format as Sherry. I'm just going to field you some questions and we won't worry about the timer. So the first question I have for you, Russ, is studies show that parent involvement enhances academic performance in students. What can the school do to encourage better parent involvement?
Well, my experience is that parent involvement is very strong at the elementary level. It starts to taper off at middle school level. And then the high school students, get embarrassed and want to stay away from their parents in some contexts. So it's a tougher job to get the high school folks to come in my experience. It doesn't mean I don't value their involvement. But through my experience as a teacher, the best potential help I can get is from a parent. So I was constantly reaching out to parents. And as a board member, I would do my best to encourage parent involvement in all aspects of the school. That's been the strongest thing I can do to help the student with their education is to get the parents involved.
What about students? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say for a couple of my behavior kids, we had a standing agreement that if they acted out and stopped me from teaching, they would go call their mom and then I'd talk to their mom on the phone. That was very effective.
So what about students who don't have a strong parental system at home? How can you help address their needs so that they can better succeed?
Well, research gives us all sorts of tools to help students understand their own self-advocacy so that they can become advocates for themselves. I'm not trying to take away from parents, but if we can't communicate with parents, then we have to work with the student the best we can. That is a challenge. And so it's a matter of helping the student set goals and learn how to make an action plan and reflect on their plan to see if it worked or not. And then do something else to see if they can get something to work better for them.
So tell us how familiar you are with the curriculum that's being taught in the school district and what are some of the improvements that you would like to see?
Well, the curriculum is all set by standards in various national groups. And so the standards-based movement has been really strong. And so if I can just go through a list here, it's been the norm in Oregon for decades. I was involved in that process, both with my master's degree in math curriculum and then in schools that I worked as a teacher. So once you get the standards from a curriculum area, then the staff constructs a path through that subject area with creativity and purpose suited to their students. Science standards come from the National Science Teachers Association. Math standards come from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. English standards come from the National Council of Teachers of English. Health and PE standards are based on Shape America, standards for health and physical education. Social studies standards are based on the National Council for Social Studies. The last ones to the table were the social studies teachers because they couldn't all agree on exactly what history was important. That was resolved in 2016.
Great, thank you. Do you feel that there is room for improvement in the curriculum at Nestucca School District?
Well, when I was there, the teachers were all working on curriculum maps. And so the improvement may happen if there's a change in the standards. But other than that, you want to look at your test data, because the students are tested 3 times a year, I believe. And that test score gives teachers breakdowns on where their weaknesses are and where their strengths are. So the district has a plan for academic intervention. And so in that model, you can identify students who are really struggling and give them extra supports and extra help. And so in that way, you can target the kids who are most at need of reading or math or whatever you're looking at.
Great, thank you. Next question. Homelessness and poverty create special challenges for students. Is there anything that the district can be doing to help mitigate those challenges so students can succeed?
Well, yes, there's programs specifically designed to support those students. And some of those are not necessarily academic, but they're through the counseling department and counselors and through the administrative team. We have an administrator that's designated as the homeless liaison, and they can bring in resources from outside the district, like the Tillamook Family Counseling Center in Tillamook. The sheriff's department can have a representative at what's called a wraparound team meeting. And so the district can deploy a lot of different resources to support kids who don't have a home or other supports.
What would you do if elected to address harassment, bullying, and intimidation in the school district?
Well, that's a really important point because kids who are perceived as different become targets. And so we want to help create policies and expectations for the staff and the students and the administrators to watch out and protect children from bullying. Now, Nestucca already has an anti-bullying policy and program in place. And it's just a matter of, having eyes everywhere and seeing everything. And the other piece is that kids have to report. The worst thing that can happen is a parent comes in and say, my kid's getting bullied and you've done nothing about it. But if the student doesn't let someone know, we can't help them. So it's really important that we get that climate in the building as an anti-bully climate, supporting all our kids. Everybody has a chance to be who they want to be.
Great, thank you. Next question. What steps would you take to give more support to students in IEP programs?
Well, that was my last decade of work was in Nestucca special education, and that's near and dear to my heart. So the IEP is written with a team, and the parents are part of the team, and then all the specialists, they're part of the team that can bring services to the needs of the student. And so that policy and that practice is well entrenched since the IDEA law was passed at the national level. So this district has all the tools they need, and they have the staff to implement it. It's an issue, we're looking at. The budget committee kept an eye on Salem because they are talking about paying special education teachers more, which would create a whole nother can of worms for the district to work out budget-wise. But the fact is the kids are the focus. And as long as the staff and the K-8 building, it's a nurturing community. No kids are getting lost there. And the high school has an excellent special ed department with teachers and staff dedicated to the kids. So I don't see it as a deficit. I see it as a program that can always be improved, but that's, of course, if we have an unlimited budget, which we do not have.
Okay, last question for you, Russ. Thank you so much again for your time today.
Sure.
Do you feel there's a place in public education to teach on the issues of sex education, sexual identity, and preferences? And if so, what grade would you see that starting? Well,
it's already laid out in the health and PE standards. So it's all about age appropriate education. And it's all about helping kids make better decisions. So the research is really clear that better informed people make better health decisions. Back in 1984, I was tasked with a mandatory HIV and AIDS curriculum. And I was teaching middle schoolers at the time. And so I had to talk about, at-risk behavior and bodily fluids. And so to be able to talk with kids about that, you had to talk about the plumbing. But when those kind of discussions come up, the policy at Nestucca is to involve parents, parent nights to look at the curriculum, talk about the curriculum. Parents have the right to pull their kids from one lesson or the whole thing. It's not about trying to push anything. It's about informing children based on research and best practices, which is evidence-based research. So I'm all for comprehensive sex education because that allows children to make the best choices. I should say young adults to make the best choices as they can.
Thank you very much. We have a question from the audience that we're going to get to. So Sherry, I think I'll have you answer this one first. And the question is, how do you feel about having open houses where taxpayers who are not parents can tour the facilities and have an opportunity to ask questions and hopefully ease some of their concerns?
I think that is a fantastic idea. And that was on one of my plans if I were to be elected. Complete transparency, let the community in, let them be involved, let them see where their money is going, and if needed more, what it's needed for. But it's very important to hear the community's concerns and field their questions.
Thank you. Russ, would you like to answer this question as well?
Sure, if you'd repeat it.
Absolutely. How do you feel about having open houses where taxpayers who are not parents can tour the facilities and have an opportunity to ask questions and hopefully ease some of their concerns?
Well, I'm all in favor of that. I mean, Nestucca is going to be a showcase school district. They've got brand new buildings and lots to show off. I think there's going to be a lot of curiosity. In fact, I was asking Ken the other night, well, I was there for my tickets to Shrek, which is a whole nother positive. The CTE building is just about to open. And so that's a tremendous possible thing. The only thing about open houses is making sure they're publicized well enough and that we can encourage folks to show up. Usually it's for parents to go to their classrooms and visit with their teachers and see the curriculum and that type of thing. But there certainly could be open houses for the community.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for your time this afternoon and for being here. And you will have an opportunity to give a closing statement once we finish with the Transportation District segment. And there may be more questions that come through the chat from the community, and we will certainly get to those as we have time. So again, thank you so much. So we're going to move on to the Tillamook County Transportation District segment of our afternoon together. And we have with us Jim Heffernan, who is running for position 1 against Tia Laviolette, who has been unable to make any of our forums so far. We will begin introductions with Jim. And we also have Mary with us today, Mary Laviolette. Did I say it right, Mary? Mary is running for Tillamook County Transportation District Position 4 against Thomas Fiorelli, and Thomas was unable to be here with us this afternoon. So, like I said, we'll begin introductions with Jim. Jim, you have 90 seconds to just introduce yourself and tell us why you're running, and then I'm going to field you some questions, and we'll just have a little bit of dialogue about the Transportation District, and then we'll do the same with Mary. So are you ready, Jim?
Yes.
If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Jim Heffernan. I'm running for position 1 on the Transportation Board because I believe in public service, and I really believe in the Transportation District now. I've had the opportunity to ride all the buses and go to all the board meetings, and I'm just very impressed, and that I want to do my part to make sure that Tillamook continues to have a transportation district that we can be proud of. And all I can say is I promise to do my best, and I promise to be a good team player. That's my statement.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions. Question number one is, there is clearly a wish and a need for shelters at the bus stops. How would you propose making more shelters a reality?
Well, to do what we can within budgets, and I have a real hunger to make it a community project in conjunction with the schools and welding classes. I think there's a way that we could scrounge stainless steel tubing from the cheese factory and have welding students put it together in good frames for minimal cost. Maybe even for free with a little bit of creative grant writing. But there's a definite need for bus shelters. They're, basic. 3rd Street is served pretty well with bus shelters, but it's about the only route that is. It gets worse out of town, but even in town, it's most bus stops are just a sign. I think there's a way we could have, at least a covered bench at a lot of them. Maybe not all at once, but I think it could be done.
How would you determine what areas would receive bus shelters first?
Oh, well, I would see what the board has to say. I would, to me, it seems like the out of town bus stops would have the most need. They're between buses times, running the hours. Where inside Tillamook, the next bus is a half hour away. But once again, I would, I'm not going to be making the decision. It'll be a board decision, and there's a lot of things to think about. That there's liability. Where can you cite it? And I'm just learning.
Absolutely. Do you see if there's a way, you foresee a way that you could get the community involved in some of those decisions?
I think so. I talked to one of the welding instructors, and there's some enthusiasm for it. But I'm just Joe Citizen now, and I realize I have to be a little careful about getting people on board.
So currently, riders have the ability to request a 3/4 mile deviation on a route in order to get closer to their destination. However, many riders are still left miles from where they need to be with no option other than to walk. Do you have any ideas on how the transportation district could bridge this gap?
Well, possibly more knowledge about the dial-a-ride. That's a tough question in a sparsely populated county. I talked to one or correspondent with one woman, on Miami Foley Road. That's a hard case. You don't want the bus to bypass Garibaldi and Wheeler and Rockaway Beach to serve Miami Foley. I don't know. It's tough in a rural county.
So what are some of the things that, as a board member, that you would attempt to do to make sure that Tillamook County residents are able to get to medical services and obligations in Clatsop County that have been cut off by the sudden shutdown of Clatsop County public transportation? Do you have any thoughts or ideas around ways to address that?
Well, the Tillamook district is on it already. They're loaning 2 buses for medical transport, and they're going to hire a dispatcher and 2 drivers for medical transport in Clatsop County. I almost hesitate to say anything, but it appears that Tillamook is going to administer the money that was loaned for essential transport because Clatsop is kind of in a mess right now. They definitely did something wrong.
Well, Jim, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, and we'll give you an opportunity at the end to give a closing statement. And again, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we have another Tillamook County Transportation District candidate. Mary is here with us. Hi, Mary. Mary, like I mentioned, Mary is running for position 4 against Thomas Fiorelli. Thomas was unable to be here this morning. So Mary, if you'd like to just introduce yourself to the community, and then I'll ask you some questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Sadie. And if I may, I'd just like to clarify the pronunciation of my last name, because there's some confusion, I know, not just here, but with voters. I am Mary Leverett, and Tia Laviolette is running for other special district positions. And I know it's confusing, but I'll help you anytime I can. So thank you. I am Mary Leverett. As I said, I am running for board position number 4 on the Tillamook County Transportation District Board. I have the training, the time, and the energy to dedicate to my community and to the transportation district. I have a master's degree in psychology, and I had an almost 30-year career in government services, both with the state of Oregon and with the city of Portland. I served those years as a middle manager, supervising both projects and staff. I'm a volunteer. I'm a volunteer at heart. For the 2nd year in a row, I'm coordinating the Wheeler Cleanup Day. But the volunteer position that I'm most proud of, if I may, is the 14 and a half years I spent as a hospice volunteer. That was a life-changing experience, and I am grateful to have had that opportunity. I am retired, and as I said, I have the time, energy, and experience to dedicate to the board. I think the transportation district, the Tillamook County Transportation District, has made great strides. They've decreased fares. They've been able to get more accessible buses, making it easier for passengers to get on and off. And they've added a round trip to Portland. But there's more to do, and I think there's always more to do. In Tillamook County, we have underserved areas, and I think that's especially important for South County, the people we're talking to today. There are limited routes. There are long waits, often between buses, and scheduling can sometimes be a multi-day affair. But public transportation is so critical to a county like Tillamook, where we have rural areas. And public transportation is critically tied to those individuals who are identified as low income. And that's 40% of Tillamook County, who rely on the transportation district to get to medical appointments, other important appointments, school, and work. I think the time now is right to get creative and find new ways, working with board members and the general manager, to listen, to learn, to make changes in scheduling as feasible, and then to fine tune as we learn more about the effect of those changes. I am ready to serve. I am dedicated to my community with the time, energy, and experience. I am Mary Leverett, and I ask for your vote by May 16th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I just have a few questions for you. You mentioned underserved areas and long wait times, particularly as it pertains to South Tillamook County.
Right.
So how do you foresee getting the community involved, particularly South Tillamook County, to find solutions to that problem, or to at least suss out what the actual problem is? Where do we need more routes? Where do we need shorter wait times? How do you foresee getting the community involved in that?
I think there are a couple ways that we can gather that information. First of all, we have riders who routinely use our buses, and I think we can talk to them either in person by riding the buses ourselves as board members and asking for input, but we can also do surveys. And I don't mean to make it complicated or hard or challenging so that people don't want to respond, but I think that there are ways that we can get that information. And we can also talk to Nestucca School Board members to learn what they believe the students need, and to the employers in the area. What did their employees need in South County to make using the bus more efficient, feasible, and reliable?
So some people have mentioned that they feel like this board isn't really responsible for decision making, or doesn't make a lot of decisions when it comes to routes, when it comes to scheduling, when it comes to things like that. So I'm curious to hear from you, what do you believe is the role of the Transportation District Board as it applies to the mission of the district, and also the responsibility of spending taxpayer money?
That's a great question. And Sadie, I've also heard concerns that the Tillamook County Transportation District Board is not as effective as it could be. I don't want to weigh in 100% on that, because until I am a board member, I would want an opportunity to learn firsthand from the board. But I think a board in general, the members are charged with making sure that the operations are fiscally responsible, that the district is managed responsibly. And I'm not talking about overseeing employer or employees, except for the general manager. And I think the board has to be very aware of policy needs by communicating with other entities, both the state and other cities, so that the policies that are in place are effective to benefit the riders. And if they can be improved, that they are improved with the consensus of the entire board. I think it's critical to understand that the board has oversight responsibility, but not hands-on responsibility for the operations. And I think that a board is the perfect liaison to the legislature, the state legislature, as needed to promote and advocate for more services for our riders just in general.
So I can't let you go without talking about Clatsop County because I think it's on everybody's minds. So just given the recent and very sudden shutdown of all public transportation in Clatsop County, what steps will you take as a board member to ensure that a situation like that doesn't happen here?
I think what I said previously, that the board has to be actively engaged and understand the budgets, the budget reports, the fiscal reports that are coming in, where the sources of funding are coming from, and to understand how they are being spent responsibly. I think the Clatsop County situation is heartbreaking. I know from the Daily Astorian article that when services were shut down on Saturday, that there were already 60 people waiting, anticipating rides on Monday to get to important appointments, such as medical needs, and even just getting to shopping. I don't mean just shopping, but let's be clear, people rely on public transportation. And I think with Tillamook County's management role, with the 5 counties that we intersect with, Benton, Clatsop County, Columbia County, of course, Tillamook, and Lincoln County, I think it's Lincoln County, that we have a greater responsibility to provide oversight for the budget and to make sure that we have the best general manager we can possibly get to help us understand what the funding situations are, what the needs are, and if there are challenges on the horizon, to help us understand those and get solutions made and in place.
Thank you very much, Mary. We appreciate your time with us this afternoon. And
you're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. We will, when we get to closing statements, you'll have another opportunity to just talk a little bit about why you're running for Transportation District. Thank you. I do have a question that has come in from the audience. This one is for our school board members. I just want to make sure Russ and Sherry are still with us. Yes, they are. Great. And I'm going to ask this question to Russ first, if you're able to turn on your camera for me.
It says the host has to do it.
Well, let's see. Can you try it now?
There we go.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So like I said, this is a question from the audience. And the question is, how will you better the transparency between the board and parents, students, and staff? And how will you get to know and build relationships between the school board and staff and students?
Okay. The word there is transparency, and I'm not sure what's not transparent. The board has an open meeting rules. I mean, people can come to the board meetings and they can sign in and ask to address the board. That's all part of the policy. It's already in place. So I have not experienced any trouble with that myself. But making sure that we're communicating openly with staff and students and parents, I think, is part of the board function. So the minutes are posted online, the agendas are posted online. There's a meeting announcement requirement that has to be done. I think it's a week in advance of the meeting. So, everybody has to participate in the process and then use the process to their best advantage. I would certainly be open to listening to any parent or any student. In fact, one of the things I hope to do is increase student and staff involvement at board meetings. I thought it would be nice to have a co-functioning, cooperating meeting with the high school student council where we could be an open meeting and they could be an open meeting and we could learn from each other in that process. But, if you find a board member down at Chester's, and that's not the same as talking to a school board member in a meeting, okay, because we can only operate really as board members when we're in the meeting and under our functioning authority.
Great. Thank you, Russ.
Did I hit all parts of that question? It was a kind of a long one.
It was. The only other part maybe would be, do you have steps that you would take, and would you be willing to talk about those that would build relationships between the school board and staff and students? So I think more than just recognizing that meetings are open to the public and that they're posted and that the operations of the school board are transparent, do you have anything specifically in mind to build those relationships between the school board with staff and students?
My professional personality is to be a relationship building because we're working with humans and we can be much more effective if we have a relationship with them. But it takes two to have a relationship. So it's not just on a board member. I'm not trying to shirk responsibility. I'm just saying, board members can't go out fishing for questions. I mean, it's got to be a give and take process that the public participates in. Students and staff don't really have a direct relationship with the board because the board really only has one employee, and that's the superintendent. And then all of our other functions happen with policy and budget issues. And so it is what it is. We meet certain times that are publicized, and we certainly, I, as a board member, would welcome everybody who wants to come to the meetings.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Sherry, I'm going to repeat the question for you. This is a question from the audience. How will you better the transparency between the board and parents, students, and staff? And what steps will you take to get to know and build relationships between the school board and staff and students?
I think that the board meeting needs to be publicized more and better, whether that be on a Facebook page, online somehow, a note sent home with the students, that it can be better served in that direction. From my experience going through these forums, a lot of the public and staff don't feel welcome to the board meetings. They didn't feel heard in the past. They feel like their questions were answered and that things were brushed under the rug. So I think that the discord between the staff members and the community is what's driving this. To help build a better relationship with the staff and the board would be to possibly hire a third party team to come in and interview the staff members and report to the board. Because right now the policy is, the board goes through the superintendent goes to the staff members and vice versa. But as a third party team can go in and interview one-on-one with the staff members and teachers and everybody, and then report back to us. We can see where the issues are and help make their voices seem heard and answer their questions and help where that's needed.
So I have a follow-up question for you, Sherry. In terms of publicizing the board meetings more or increasing that transparency, how do you balance that with the fact that a lot of the people down in that area don't have internet?
Well, you could send a note home with the students. They get a Friday folder in the elementary school. And some of them get internet when they're at work or whatever. And there's athletic pages, a quick note, this date and this time is our board meeting. Please join us. There's other ways to go about it. You can do a text message. You get text messages if buses are late, maybe a text message that this board meeting is happening. there's other ways to go about it.
Great, thank you. Okay. So we thank you again so much to all of the candidates who are with us this afternoon. And we're going to go ahead and move into our closing statements. And we will go in the order that we started. So actually, we're going to start with you, Sherry. And, you have about 45 seconds to just, tell us a little bit more about why people would want to vote for you.
Okay. Well, first, thank you, Sadie. You are a wonderful host and incredible interviewer. I'm running to be a voice for our children. I'm a parent candidate. I have children that are coming up through the school district, and I want to be a voice for the children. I want to make sure they're set up for the future and be a positive role model. I'm not running as a favor to anybody. I wasn't asked to run. I chose to. I want to create a relationship with staff and teachers and help them have the tools they need to succeed and for our students to succeed. Our teachers and staff are pivotal to our children. I want to run, and I have the unlimited time to devote to all issues and help improve the school.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Russ, you are next. If you would like, you have about 45 seconds.
Right, thank you. I appreciate the forum and the opportunity to be here. So when I first held my firstborn child in my hands and looked into her eyes, I fell in love in a way that I've never felt before. And then we got home and I went back to work and I looked at the eyes of my classroom students and realized they're somebody else's baby. They're somebody else's dreams and hopes. And so it changed my teaching in the sense of how I saw every child in my classroom, that I was responsible for their education. So it made me also deeply aware of connecting with parents and being a voice for the kids and the parents in making a strong education. I am a strong advocate for public education. They are for every child in the district, and I am for supporting homeschool families, supporting every child in the district. And so we have a huge district, huge area covered, and I'm here for everyone. Please vote for me and we'll make it work.
Thank you so much, Russ. Jim, would you like to give a closing statement?
Yes, I would. I would like to speak about the present Tillamook board. I was at the emergency meeting they had after Clatsop ceased operations, and when it was apparent that they were going to be able to administer help with the aid of a loan from the Department of Transportation Investment Bank money, and it required that they send a couple buses to Tillamook and hire a dispatcher and drivers. And just the depth of questions, of the questions I saw from the 5 board members, how they explored every angle of doing that, just impressed me. And they talked about it for a good 45, 50 minutes before they did vote unanimously to grant the authority to Brian Vitelli to do what he thought necessary to. And I don't think that happened in Clatsop or Sunset Empire. I also, via Zoom, went to one of their meetings, and it was an entirely different atmosphere. I really think what went on at Sunset Empire was that they were believing Hazen, the director, and Debbie Bush-Schmidt, the chairman, that everything was going to be all right, and it wasn't.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate your time here this afternoon.
Well, and I sure appreciate you your time too. And I just thought this whole forum process is wonderful.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Leverett. Did I do it?
Here she is. Thank you. I see a future for our public transportation system in which every member of our community can travel seamlessly at a moment's notice and at an affordable price. I see daily commuters to work and school who don't have long waits and can be home in time for dinner. However, achieving these goals means getting into the details of demand, connections, frequency of current ridership, and making changes based on data. I'm ready to sit down with riders to assess their needs, talk with service providers, government programs, grant providers, and others to learn the issues and to develop solutions to meet these issues. I am running for Tillamook County Transportation District Board Position number 4. And I'm grateful to have been invited to attend these forums. And I thank you and the viewers for participating with us.
Thank you so much, Mary. Okay. So again, I just can't thank everyone enough for being here, both the candidates for taking the time, as well as the community members who showed up. Thank you for asking questions. We have had a question about how these videos will be distributed. So I'm just going to go over that very quickly. The recording of this meeting will be available online and will be shared across social media, as well as the Tillamook County Pioneers website. And the previous recordings from our last 2 forums that we've held in North and Central County will also be available online. You can search for them on MoveVoter, which is a Facebook group with over 1,000 members or close to 1,000 members. So I encourage everyone to join that Facebook group. And you can find the recordings, again, like I said, on the Tillamook County Pioneers website, which is tillamookcountypioneer.net. And what else? Oh, yes. In all the candidates threads on MoveVoter, we'll be posting the videos there as well. So is in as many Facebook groups as we can post it to. Hopefully, you'll see it all over. And certainly reach out to MoveVoter or the Tillamook County Pioneer if you would like a copy. We really do believe that these discussions are vital to helping a voter make a decision. And so we'll continue to try to get as many candidates from contested races as we can to the next forum, which for South Tillamook County, the next forum is May 11th at 6 p.m. And if you would like a link to that Zoom meeting, you can search for the event on Facebook. You can look up MoveVoter, or you can go to tillamookcountypioneer.net. We are distributing the Zoom links to all of those. So we have 3 more forums coming up next week for North, South, and Mid-County. And like I said, the South Tillamook County Forum will be May 11th at 6 p.m. And hopefully we can get some more people there and some of those contested races so that we can hear from more of the candidates. So again, just thank you so much. Now you're free to go enjoy your sunshine.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.